Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Pastor to Pioneer podcast. I'm here today with our guest, Brian Thompson. Brian is a former pastor and now pioneering ministry, which I'm sure he'll talk about today. A great guy, a surfer, which you better share a little bit about some surfing today. I don't meet many guys in South Carolina who are surfers who are over the age of 40. So I'm not
True.
going to say how old you are, but I will say welcome to the podcast, my man. I'm glad you're here.
Well, thank you, Britton. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, first for being my friend and being, you've been a sounding board for myself, and I know a lot of others. But thank you for being willing to listen and man, just having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you agreed to do this.
Yeah.
I'd love to start first before we get into you becoming a pastor. I want to know, how did you get into surfing? That's my first question.
So, I grew up on the coast. I lived closer to the beach when I was growing up. My grandparents had a place at Springmaid Beach, in South Carolina, and so they had a place down there, and so I was there all the time, and my time there, I spent a lot of time in the water. I mean, literally, we were, uh, I don't know, I would say if I said 200 yards from the water, it would be a lot. We were on the water, and so I spent a lot of my days in the water, and it is kind of came natural to me with doing that. And then through growing up in the '80s as I did, which I'm kind of still telling my age a little bit, and I'll get there. I'll tell you, I'm 55 this year, but growing up in the '80s, skateboarding and all that was popular back in the day, and it still is today to a certain degree. It's just not popular with me because of my age, but it was really ramping up then, and man, so we were all in that whole skateboarding and surfing scene around the beach and everything, and it was a cool time for me, and so I just kind of fell into it almost naturally.
I love it. Well, it's so fun. Even now, I'll call you. You're calling me. I'm like, oh man, hey, just coming back from surfing today. I'm like, what are you what?
Yeah.
It's great. You're crazy. So I love that you're still doing it in your 50s, man. Way to go. That's no
Yeah.
joke. That's no
Well,
joke.
no, it's not, and it's hard. So actually, I took about. I'm going to be generous with this number. I took about 35 years off from surfing. Yeah,
Wow.
and so so life got in the way.
Yeah.
As growing up, whenever I started, I guess I kind of grew out of it a little bit, maybe. But life got in the way, then marriage, then kids, and then the whole thing, and didn't have time. And then I was really out of shape. I started gaining weight because of my lifestyle and everything else, and I wasn't able to do it. And honestly, it wasn't even on my radar up until I don't know a couple of years ago. And so I just the doctor discovered a couple of years ago that I had type 2 diabetes,
Hmm.
and they suggested putting me on a GLP-1 medication to kind of treat some of that, and it would help me lose some weight in the process. And so at this point, I've lost almost 100 pounds. Over the
Dang,
last
bro.
Yeah, over the last 2 years, I've lost almost 100 pounds. And so when I lost the first 50 or so. I got to feeling better, feeling more of myself the way I used to feel. And I don't know, I just had this wild idea. Hey, let's try this again. And I'm retired, and I don't know. I said let's give it a go. So I tapped in to some people I know at the beach, and started getting a few lessons from a buddy of mine. And it's hard. It was it was extremely hard. The first day after my first lesson, man, I woke up and I felt like I'd been drugged behind a truck. I mean, I was sore from head to toe, and I said, I never, ever, ever remember it being this difficult, and but it is. And so, but I have it. I loved it. It sparked something in me then that I wish I had never lost. And as much as it's probably counterintuitive to say, because most people don't relate religion or Christ with surfing and the water, because there's a lot of negative things associated with your surfer, especially from the '80s. It's a drug and fested lifestyle, and just drinking
Totally.
and partying and all the stuff. Yes, it's true. That was true But in the right setting, it's not that way. And around the right people, it's not that way. And so I found a way to connect God in all of that, because I'm at peace when I'm in the water and just sitting there sometimes just waiting. I see all of his creation. I see all that he's done. And man, it just takes me to a place that I love to be, and that's in his presence. And I can't describe it any other way. That's the best way I know how to describe it. But it's helped me in my spiritual walk.
Wow.
Yeah, it's helped me in all these areas in my life that I can come back to who God originally made me to be. I really believe that.
I love it. Well, one of these days, next time I'm in South Carolina, if I'm at the beach, you're gonna have to come over,
Absolutely,
teach me how to surf, man. I've never been. I've never been surfing,
you'd
so
like you'd like
um, it wouldn't be pretty, but it'd be fun to do.
it.
Well, I love to jump in. I mean, we got to the surfing part of your story, but I'd love to jump back a little bit to you becoming a pastor. I mean, you've been on this journey from pastor to pioneer. Um, like how, when did you become a pastor? Why did you become a pastor?
So, and this has been on my mind lately, really a lot lately, right? As to
Mm.
why we do what we do, and you and I have talked about that. So, I guess it was, I guess probably upwards of about 10 years ago, maybe now 10 years. Yeah. So, I just moved into the town that I live in Bennettsville. I moved, and my wife and I, she wasn't my wife at the time. She lived here, and I moved here. But after we got married, um, we got looking for a church to go to, and so we tried several churches out, and we finally found a fit, and it was in the Nazarene denomination, in the Nazarene church here locally in town, and I don't know. So I struck up a relationship with the senior pastor there,
Hmm.
and almost immediately he recognized my heart, and my heart was for people and for outreach and things of that nature. And so immediately he started, I mean, purposefully involving me in ministry in that setting. And then it came from comments from people asking me, "Hey, are you a pastor or whatever?" And I'm like, no, 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 no. And it was like when I was saying, "Oh, don't dare call me that," because, oh, no, no, because I think so highly of that position. And I still do today. Honestly, I do. I respect that. Anybody that's still doing it, I do. Um, but I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not a pastor. No, no. And so through transition of several pastors at this same church, um, seemed like I was friends with all of them that came,
Hmm.
and all of them saw kind of the same gifts and graces that I had. And I don't know. I think some of the why, honestly, to be completely transparent with this, in the very beginning, I went down this path because of, I think, what people expected of me,
Mm.
because that's what they thought that I should be doing. And who am I to question? Well, if these people are seeing something in me, what do I know, right?
Mm.
And so I started pursuing. I started looking into it, and of course I prayed about it. I don't know that I prayed the right prayer with all of that. Honestly, I don't know, but I prayed, and so the last senior pastor I had at the local church here, he and I became very good friends. We're still good friends today. He's not there anymore, but we're still very good friends.
Mm.
And he's a surfer, by the way, too. So just so you know, but you know, he and I had several, multiple long conversations about my faith and about me going into the ministry. When I
Mm.
brought it up to him about starting the ministry and going into the ministry, and he was very patient with that. And he's like, "I can't answer this for you. You've got to hear this from God. God's got to be calling you to it. I can't. I can tell you, I see the gifts and graces, but whether He's called you to it or not, that's between you and God." And so that's when I really started digging into it and saying, "All right, God, this is between you and me, and I understand that now. Have you called me to this? Or are you, And it was something that I just kept hearing. Well, just go try it. Let's just go see, right?"
Mm.
And so I did. So in the Nazarene denomination, we have to be first pastor approved. He's got to see the gifts and graces and kind of approve me going and get a local license in the local church, which kind of restricts me to that church and that church only for at least a year. And then I can advance and move to a district type license to where I can move within the district and fill in for pastors and whatnot. And in that time, you've got to be enrolled in some sort of Bible college
Mm.
to do that. And so I started looking at the Bible college. I went to Nazarene Bible College online, and I took the required classes. And then I was approved my local license through my local church. And then after a year, I did that. I met the requirements academically to apply for a district license, which is a little bit more involved because it involves the district superintendent, the board of general superintendents, which is his boss, and they've all got to review my application process and see, okay, we believe in you. We see your gifts and graces, and had several interviews through that process too. So it wasn't just all something written down. It was a face to face stuff.
Okay.
And so I did. I really felt more then than I probably ever have that I'm called to this. That this is for me, and I was really liking it. And I say liking it. Well, I don't know what I mean by that. I was enjoying the journey. Okay.
Okay.
And then as time went on, man, it got really heavy. The weight
Mm.
of the
Mm.
title for me
Mm.
got heavy, and in a way that I'd never ever anticipated. Yeah. So
Tell me more about that. Tell me what about that title, what about that role started feeling heavy?
So I guess for me, I got district licensed. So the church that I was going to here in town, I'd left that church and went to another church about 40 minutes away from us, and it was at a Nazarene church. And so that's where I got my district license when I was at that church. And then after I got my district license, the senior pastor, he appointed me or named me the associate pastor of the church. So not only was I new at this whole pastor thing and really felt like I didn't really know what I was doing other than, okay, I'm labeled and I've got a title now. Now I'm labeled an associate pastor of the church. Still really didn't know what I was doing, but at the same time, I love the people. And I felt like that part of my job as being one of their pastors was to, hear their burdens, to share their burdens. And I even took it a step farther, and I thought it was up to me a little bit to carry their burdens.
Mm.
And man, those burdens got heavy.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, my passion was to see the church grow. I wanted growth in the church. I wanted us to explode with new people and new things and outreach stuff. And so all of that was piling on to the burden of the congregants there, right? And I tried so many times to just drop it, to let it go, say, God, I know this is yours. I know this is not intended for me, and I know that. And I dropped it. And I tried to drop it, and every time I would drop it and walk away, I drag it with me. And so finally there had to be a time in my life, and that's that now that I've cut that rope, and I'm not licensed anymore. I still love people. I still have a heart for ministry. I still have a heart for outreach in the community. And honestly, I don't look down on the church, the institution of the church. I don't look down on that because I do believe it has helped a lot of people and can be very critical. It can be a critical piece to their growth. But at the same time, I'm feeling less and less like the institution is for me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get into that kind of your transition out here in a minute, because it's very, very fresh for you. But I'm curious, like for you, why do you think you kept picking that back up, that burden of, carrying people's burdens, and like as much as you try to lay it down, why do you think you kept picking them back up?
I honestly, Britton, I think I felt like it was my job. I mean, I
Who
think that was part of the
Where did
description.
that come from? So where did that come from? Like, you think it was your job? Did someone say that to you? Is it just kind of your own assumptions? Like, where did that come from?
Both, a little bit of both. And so my assumptions of what the role of a pastor is, and what they're typically what I thought they were there for. One of the reasons they were there for, and one of those things is to a person you can go and talk to and share things with in a confidential state. And they were looking to me for sometimes wisdom, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was. And I don't know, I just felt like that was my job as that role.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And what about the outreach? You said you just had a heart for outreach, which I know that about you. It doesn't take long to talk with you until you figure out that you got a heart for the lost and a heart for outreach.
Yeah.
How did that become a burden in the church? Is it because you felt like you were solely responsible for that? Was it because it felt like an overwhelming task? Did it feel like because the church was not on board with that and you were? Like, tell me more about what that burden was.
So the outreach part never really was a burden.
Okay.
But so the actual act of the outreach, that never was, because man, I'm good with whatever, whenever. Okay. The part that burdened me, it goes back to the people again, right? Of I can't understand, and I know I'm not supposed to. I know all this stuff that I'm not supposed to know and figure out, and it's not on me, and I understand that. But I can't figure out why people in general don't want to get on board with this. I don't know why it's not as important to people as it is to me, because I know it's important to Jesus. We read about that, how much he loved people and reaching people. What have they missed? Without judging them, without saying they're not going to make it to heaven or any of this stuff. I'm not saying any of that, but man,
Totally.
what have they missed about what Jesus said about loving your neighbor?
Mm,
Right? Because that's part of it. And your neighbor is not just somebody physically next door to you. Your neighbor is anybody you meet. And so when we fail to reach out and all we do is invite, what are we really doing? And that's the society, I'm afraid, that we live in sometimes, is all we're doing. Well, we're inviting people all day long, but what are we doing to convince them this is a good place we're inviting you to?
uh, so you're saying they were operating under the assumption of outreaches. I'll invite people I meet or invite people to church, and that's it. That's my job. Is that what I'm hearing you
Some of
say?
them, yeah, some of them,
Okay.
yeah, some of them, and then there's another side of that too, that they a fearful side. For one, well, we just don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. We don't know how to go about doing it. Um, and then the another reality of it is we don't have enough people involved to do it.
What do you mean by
Right?
that? You don't have enough
The,
people involved to do it.
there's not enough people willing to get involved to make
Like with
to help do something.
like with like the program side of things. Is that what you're
Yeah, like
saying?
like like an
Events.
outreach, yeah, like an outreach event or VBS or whatever. We typically have the same people helping all the time, and typically they do the
Yeah.
same job every time, and we're wearing these people thin.
Oh
And
yeah.
my heart is, okay, I appreciate what you do. I thank you so much for what you do, and your service is very much needed. But I'd like you to take a break this time and let somebody else take your place and let somebody else do it and give you a break. Or and it's hard to find. We can't find people to do that, and so that was another part of it that really weighed on me, because I couldn't figure out why people didn't want to get involved.
Wow. So you did this for a while. When you started noticing, man, this is a burden. I feel like I'm trying to twist people's arms and like what did you start doing when you came to some of these realizations at first?
I pulled back a little bit, like, okay, well, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to go to this event. I'm not going to. I just started taking small baby steps back, away, and when I did that, I kind of felt a little bit guilty, a little bit,
Mm,
because I felt
mm.
like I was letting them down. But when I stepped back, I was also looking from the outside in, and I really got a chance to look and see, okay, this is what we have, or this is what we don't have, or this is who
Mm.
we have or who we don't have. And it was just all an evaluation process, and it's still been an evaluation process up until now. And I still do that. I
Mm.
evaluate, and you know, you learn a lot when you take a step back and look from the outside in.
Which makes sense. I mean, when you're doing that evaluation process, what led you to realize I need to step away from being a pastor entirely and not just here at this church? If I just go find the right church, that'll be a better fit. If I find the right church of people that are wanting to do outreach, what made you realize this wasn't just a church specific issue, but you need to step away from it entirely?
So, in order for me to have remained a pastor, okay, in the Nazarene denomination, I would have had to stay in Bible college, and I had to take 2 classes a year online, which, I mean, doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not a lot. 2 classes every year. Each class is maybe 6 weeks long, so it's not a grueling process, honestly,
Okay.
right? And they give me 10 years to complete so many courses to get ordained in the denomination, which is a lot of time, right?
Mhm.
But every class that I took was like getting harder and harder, not academically, right? Because the classes were relatively pretty easy, honestly. I felt like, man, I was being forced to go to school,
Mm.
right? And so, in a matter of speaking, if I wanted to keep my title, I had to do that. And so I just got evaluating that, as I've done so many other things. And it's like, why am I really doing this? Because I don't like school. I don't want to be in school, but yet I'm being made to go to school to keep my title. So then I evaluated, does the title mean that much to me?
Wow.
And honestly, the title didn't mean that much to me. The title didn't, what was keeping my title was taking my peace.
Wow.
Okay. And that's the only way I can do it, because I was like, man, I got this class coming up. Oh my gosh. I got these papers due. I got this due. I got this due. And it was stealing my joy and stealing my peace. And I was doing that because I had to meet a standard. And I just didn't think that Jesus had ever called me to meet that standard.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
I know what he called me to. I don't have any questions today at all that he hasn't called me to reach the lost. That I know that without a shadow of a doubt. And so, I don't need school or a title to do that.
Well, it's interesting to me that you felt that clarity. God has called you to reach the lost, but you came to the conclusion that like I can't do that as a pastor in this prevailing model of the church. I
Yeah.
can't keep doing this and live into the call God's given me, which is to reach the lost, which is really fascinating. Did you think that you would be able to do that in the institution at first?
I did. I did. I thought it was going to be a lot easier than it was, because, and not taking anything away from a call that we have,
Yeah.
and the ability that God gives us, and everything. But man, I don't know. I just felt like that I felt like it was easier than what it was, and maybe it is to some. Maybe it is, and maybe the ones that it's easier to are the ones that are really called for that, for the being
Well,
in the institution
I
part of it.
mean, maybe for some, but we've had now over 100 episodes, and that's a lot of stories, and most of them would tell you, nah, it's pretty tough to do inside the institution to live into that
Yeah,
call of making
yeah,
disciples,
and
reaching the
you
lost.
know what it's like, because you were a senior pastor for what, 13 or 14 years. You
Yeah.
know what it's like,
Yep.
and so did you have some of the same burdens that I'm mentioning? That
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, a
Okay,
lot of the same ones, and I think some of it just becomes a practical thing of like to run an organization, to run an institution, and all that is expected in that takes time, energy, and attention. And so
yeah,
even if you want to go,
mhm,
make disciples or go reach the lost, or like you didn't have time to do that. And even if you could squeeze out time, you just didn't have the capacity, the brain space or heart space a lot to do it, because the machine, the institution always demanded so much of you all the time. At least it did for me. That's what
Yeah,
made one of the things that made it hard.
yeah, and another thing too, and like you mentioned, all the expectations, and so I'll even go. The expectations of the congregation is, well, it's your job. It's the
Yeah.
pastor's job.
Yeah, of
This is
course.
your
Yeah.
job to do that. And so I came in with the mindset of no, no, no. This isn't my job. This is one of my jobs, but this is also everybody's job to
Yeah.
either pray or do whatever. No, no, no. This is y'all's job to do this, not necessarily just mine or the senior pastor's job. And so I was more of the radical with trying to change that and trying to say no, wait, no, you can do that. I don't need to do that. You can do that. And then when I did that, I kind of felt guilty because, well, they looked at me to do that, and I almost felt like I told them no. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Mm,
I'll just,
interesting.
So there was a guilt factor in that too,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because I mean, sadly enough, as much as we think uh, that we've trained, and I don't mean that the way it sounds, but we've trained our people to
No.
be self-sufficient, self-serving Christians, to do things for on their own. They don't, and I was trying to say to them, we need to relearn this. You need to learn how to do this because we're not always going to be here.
So how did that go? You're trying to make changes from within to try to
Yeah,
change expectations, to change the goal, the bullseye. How did that go?
it didn't. I mean, it didn't. I mean, it's like they understand and they know, but they always revert back to. And I guess we're all creatures of habit,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
I mean, it's not, and don't think I'm talking bad about anybody. I'm not talking bad about anybody because we're all creatures of habit. But
Yeah.
I just think there's certain principles that your average Christian should know how to do that they don't do. And so that was part of the frustration part why it was also heavy because I felt like I had to do it if they didn't, that it was still my job.
Yeah, those are so insightful, Brian. So you decided, okay, I'm going to step away from this entirely. I'm giving up the title. And for you, that didn't sound like that was that big of a deal, that hard to do, giving up the title, giving up the role. What did ministry look like after you vacated the role and title of pastor? You stayed at the church, right?
I stayed at the church, and honestly, in the church, I didn't do anything anymore. It was, I didn't preach anymore. I mean, I wasn't used hardly anymore by the
Mm,
senior pastor, and I yeah, it was a difficult time. Because I know it was probably confusing maybe a little bit for him because he didn't know he I mean, I guess I didn't have a title. So what do you do with that? Right? How do I use a non-licensed ex-pastor to still do a pastor role? I don't know. I imagine it was pretty difficult. Um,
yeah, I could see where it would be difficult for him, but I'm also thinking like, well, the calling's still there, the gifts are still there, the heart's still there. The only thing missing now is a title.
right.
Uh,
I've gone back and forth with that. And I mean, even and I try to give him grace as well as
yeah, of
far
course.
as giving him time to process, giving him time to see what's best, what he thinks is best for me, in that setting, and I even asked on several occasions, hey, I'm available to preach, or I'd like to get back. I'd like to preach again. I'd like to do whatever, and it was the subject was kind of like I can't say he pushed it to the side. I'm not. I can't speak for him, and I don't know what he was feeling honestly. But I felt like a lot of times that it was just looked over, like, well, okay, well, yeah, I'll get back to you, and it never was.
Yeah, and you're right. There was probably some, even within the denomination, there was probably some factors and restrictions and things he could and couldn't do with you. That makes it does make it hard.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, like I said, I don't know the conversations he might have had with the district superintendent, which is his pastor, which is his boss.
Yeah,
I don't know the conversations they had, and
yeah,
maybe if some of that was shared more with me, I might would have understood more. Um, but nevertheless, it is what it is, and you know, and I don't regret the decision that I made.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't. And even now, so I've now stepped completely away from the church.
Okay.
And like I said, I don't regret it. Honestly, I don't. Do I feel a little bit maybe out of place or a little bit guilty? Yeah, a little bit. I do. Because that's been such a big part of my life for the last, we'll just say 10 years.
Yeah.
Missing very little and being so involved and you know, just sometimes being the driving force to getting people doing stuff. And
Yeah.
I do. I kind of miss it, but at the same time, you know, I don't know. I know that there's other things out there for me to do.
What made you decide to kind of stop doing the whole prevailing model as a whole rather than just like, all right, I'm going to keep going and then I'll just serve outside? Because if I remember correctly, you were still serving, you were still having all kinds of spiritual conversations that of people that didn't know God, and it just wasn't happening in things associated with that church. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, yeah, I still do. I still do. I still do. And so I don't know. I mean, it's just I guess it's going to take some time for me um, to get some of those feelings out of me. I guess. Um,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, because of the time that I spent there, which it ain't a lot of time. I mean, compared to some others, I mean, it's still not a lot of time, but
That's
I
one
put a
on.
lot into the time that I was there,
Good.
and I really, you know, yeah. So
Well, you said, kind of working through these feelings because you spend so much time there. Like what would some of those feelings be that you're having now that you've stepped away?
so the biggest, I don't know if you call it a fear or concern, you know, whatever we want to call it, but man, my biggest um concern was that am I letting God down?
Ooh.
Um am I hearing him? Am I listening? Or is this something that I want to tell myself because I'm fed up? Right? I mean, I want to make sure that I'm doing what God wants me to do in
Wow.
all of this. And that's been, man, a back and forth prayer with me and my wife and, you know, our friend Adam. Adam's been praying for the
Yep.
situation. And yeah, that was my main concern. I don't want to disappoint God in my decision making.
Yeah, that's a big one. I hear that a lot from guys that make this transition. I guess I'm curious as I hear you say that. Like, have you felt that before at other points in your life when you had a big decision to make?
That I was disappointing God?
Yeah.
Not like this. No,
Why do you
no.
think this one feels so different?
Because I think this is like direct service to Him. I mean, this is. I feel like this is what He's created me to do, right? And not just some decision that I need to make on, you know, whatever, something else that you know that I know that if I make the wrong decision, and I know if I make the wrong decision in this, there's also grace, there's mercy, there's forgiveness, there's love. I don't expect to be beat up by making a wrong decision. I understand that, but man, when I'm talking about my call on my life to represent my God, I want to make sure that I've got that right.
Here here's what I wonder as I hear you say that, Brian, is are you do you think you're doing that in the places where he's planted you now? Do you think you're representing him well in the opportunities he's given you in the places where you're serving and caring for people?
Yes, I do. I do.
I think you are too, man. Like,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
I think one of the hardest things that a lot of us have to wrestle through in this, man, is like we've put on a pedestal like the role of pastor, the ministry and calling.
you.
Like that's where I'm going to serve God.
Mm-hmm.
And our callings are just not tied to a title or job or institution. And I think I have watched you live out the calling God has placed in your life in very real, relational, normal, everyday ways outside the institution, from teaching kids how to surf to having interactions with whoever you run into. You're always talking about to people and talking to Jesus. Like,
Yeah.
I think you've been incredibly faithful with the call that God's placed in your life
Thank you.
outside of the institution. And I know it feels weird. It does feel weird because it's contrary to what we've been told for so
Yeah.
long. So those are normal feelings, man. Like, but I want to encourage you, like,
Oh, thank you.
I think you're
And, you know,
following the
and
Lord.
what feels weird too, though, Britton, is, man, you know, the old model. The model is, okay, you go out and you witness to somebody, you tell them about Jesus. Oh, but then, oh, you're going to hell if you don't do this. Oh, you know, you're going to burn if you don't turn. And that might have worked 40 years ago, and we scared people into heaven, scared them away from hell and into heaven. We scared them so bad. I don't think that's sustainable today. I don't think you can do that today. It doesn't work today. And so what's weird for me, honestly, is I may have conversations with people for weeks, multiple conversations, never mention religion, never mention God, never mention getting saved, never mention any of that. Right. And that really kind of feels weird because we've been wired to, I mean, you got to go witness to somebody. You got to tell them all about Jesus, and you got to tell them, I don't disagree with that at all. We do need to, but I don't believe anymore that it's the first and foremost conversation you have with somebody.
Yeah. So I guess it's my question. Like, okay, well, why not? Why don't you have that conversation?
I think they get it by seeing our character. They get it by seeing how we act in our words and what we say and how we do. And eventually, I'm a firm believer, eventually you have a strong enough relationship with somebody. Eventually, they're going to ask you why you do a certain way, or why you do this, or why you said it this way, or why don't you do that. Then that's your opportunity to just tell them, hey, well, this is why. And that's going to spark a whole new set of conversations. And so a prime example of that is that I was still a pastor when I got back into surfing. And then I took my first lesson, and I was down at the beach. And so the lesson was 2 hours long. And the guy that I had, he reminded me of me when I was younger. He's probably in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, right? So he'd been around a while, and so he knew the scene back in the 90s when I was still in it in the 90s a little bit. And so language wasn't the best in the world, the whole thing. And anyway, so we talked, and after about an hour of our conversation, something was said. I don't know exactly what was said, but then I kind of said, well, so I'm a pastor, and this, that, and the other. And so the cool thing about that is when I told him that, it was like it was said and it was moved on. His conversation, his language, his everything didn't change. And I didn't say, yeah, you shouldn't say that. My demeanor never changed either. Okay. Our conversation stayed the same. And after 2 or 3 of those conversations that we had over the next 2 or 3 weeks after that, we formed a really good friendship. And it was one of those things, and I've never told him, honestly, that he's wrong. I've never told him he shouldn't do anything. I've never told him he shouldn't say that, or never. I've never talked down to him one bit. But he knows where I stand, right? And so that's created an environment for us to talk about religion and God in a way that's no condemnation, no judgment, right? We agree to disagree, and that's fine. And honestly, we agree on a lot more than we disagree.
How did you end up broaching that subject with them? So you've been hanging out a couple weeks as your instructor. How does that conversation turn to spiritual things?
So it was kind of simple, honestly. I think it might have been the very first lesson after I said I was a pastor. And he said something, and so it's like, because I was just I was looking for a way after I told him I was a pastor, that then I kind of felt like, okay, all right, Brian, you're kind of obligated yourself now to you got to tell him some scripture. You've got to lead him that way, or because you've got to let the cat out the bag now, right? And so I'm like, he said something. I said, well, Kev, I said, the Bible mentions something about, and the scripture talks about, and I didn't tell him the whole story and preach to him. And he was just like, he was just listening intently to what I was saying.
Wow.
And he's like, man, he said, yeah, I felt that. He said, I needed to hear that today. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so that was that conversation. Then that conversation spurred on more conversations the next time. And I think I probably spent more time with him sitting on the sand than we did in the water, just talking about life and just talking about situations and the church. Of all places, we talked about the church. And this guy, he doesn't go to church. He got hurt by the church, actually. And he doesn't go to church, but he believes in God. He believes in a higher power. He prays and everything. Is he saved? I can't say he's not saved. I can't say he is, but I would tend to believe he's probably saved. He believes in Jesus and knows what Jesus did for him. But it opened up a door that I just walked right into, and I've been inside of that door ever since. And it's like, now he knows he can call me and say, hey man, what you think about this? Or what do you think about this? And he knows where I'm coming from with no judgment, which is a cool place to be.
It's wild. I appreciate you sharing that story. It's just a really practical story on what that looks like. And I think it's also like a great story on so much when we make this transition from pastor to pioneer, how much needs to change and how much like this inner stuff that starts coming up that like, oh, I guess I am uncomfortable about this, or this feels weird. And I think one of the things I really appreciate about you in this transition that has been relatively new, Brian, is like, you're paying attention to that. You're not like stuffing it down. You're not ignoring it. You're paying attention like, wow, that kind of feels off, or that feels weird. What do I do about this? Well, what do I believe? Is that true? Is that not true? And I just think that's going to serve you really well and really be part of that detox process that I think is really important as you start pioneering more.
Yeah. And, another part of that, and I'll go back to the whole surfing story and the encounter with, Kevin, my very first one to give me lessons and everything. So now I'm working for the same place he's working. It's a summer job twice a week at the beach. And, man, it's by far the best job I ever had. Let me say that. And so the cool thing about this and how, and I give God the credit, honestly, I give him the credit for, he's allowed me to see, honestly, and not talking about me and like blowing me up, but I'm seeing, I think he's rewarding me for some of my faithfulness, honestly, not because of the job that I have, but I was inquiring about a job, the summer job, right? So I was talking to my buddy Kevin, and I said, hey, Kev, I said, you think Jack will hire me for the summer? Yeah, I think he will. Yeah, absolutely. And I was kind of just joking around. I was just kind of feeling it out to see, and I didn't know if I wanted to do it or not. And so a couple of weeks after that, we were at the beach again, and the owner, Jack, he pulled up, and him and Kevin were talking, my buddy. And Kevin called me over and said, hey, bro, come here, meet Kevin. Come meet Jack. And I'd seen him around. I kind of knew about who he was and everything. And I met him, and he introduced himself and everything. And he looked at me and said, so you want a job this summer? Right? And I'm like, okay, all right. It was kind of awkward, but I'm like, well, yeah, maybe. Let's talk about it. You're right? Because, I'm 2 hours from there. It's a 2-hour commute to the beach for me, wow. Right? And so I was like, I didn't know if I was willing to make that drive more than a couple times a week. But I was doing it anyway. I was going surfing anyway, so I was down there. But in that conversation, though, he knew that I used to be a pastor. Kevin had told him.
Wow.
And told him about, I guess, some of my story and me. So it takes me back to my original statement. I saw God in that. I saw
amazing.
Some of the fruit, man, that I had shown Kevin, I was getting it back, right? Because he was spreading it.
What's the job? Like, what are you doing in the summer? What's the summer job?
So twice a week, this place, they rent surfboards, they rent kayaks, they give kayak tours, they do surf lessons, and they have a kids camp that teaches kids to surf. and I don't know exactly what age the age cutoff is, but it's relatively young. I would just say preteen, down. Um, and so what I do is on Monday mornings, and so this started out. It evolved as I started. It's only been going on for this is like the fourth or fifth week now, I think. The role is evolving into something that I see God in as well, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But so on Mondays, my job was to go down on Mondays and help start the kids camp for that week, like be like the MC of everything, and just say, "Hey, kids," and really get the kids excited and ready to go. And so I do that on Mondays, and then on Fridays at the end of the week, camp's over at 12. So instead of going and doing their separate things, all the kids are together on the beach, and we have a surfing competition on Fridays. And so we have judges. I've been one of the judges since day one. And we judge them, and we give out prizes and awards and stuff. And we give away a surfboard every week.
Wow.
A brand new surfboard every week we give away through a raffle that we do. And if whatever's left in the kitty after the raffle tickets and everything else, we put that towards funding kids to go to camp that can't afford it. Awesome. So so it's a great program. So now that started off as, okay, so we want you to be kind of like maybe the older influence, the more wisdom in that, because I'm the oldest one there. I'm older than the owners. I mean, I'm the oldest one there, right? OG. And so now it's kind of evolved around to, hey, Brian, man, we'd like you to just kind of just take some of this over, right? Like, we don't want to have to be here. We don't want to have to start. We want to just turn it over, and if you will, and let you just take it on yourself. And I'm like, okay, all right. Which is, I'm honored to do that, right? Because they evidently trust me, and they see something in me that maybe I can't see myself. And so, like I said, I give God the credit for all of that, and I really see, and I'm being really careful through this process. I'm being really careful because in our beginning conversation before I got the job and the interview process and everything, the idea was to maybe offer prayer to the kids and everything, and that was going to be my job. And it's like, as somewhat of the chaplain of the shack, and it's like, okay, and spreading some wisdom, I guess. For me, I'm like, well, okay, but let's feel it out, because I don't think we need to jump off and start doing that. Start with, because of different views, because of different religions, and it's just hold on. But it's just I don't know. It's just cool, man. I love it. I can't stop talking about it enough.
Incredible opportunity, man. I'm so pumped for you.
Yeah.
One of my last questions here for you is, you stepped away now from the prevailing model institutional church. What does church look like for you now, or what are you hoping it looks like?
So I hope it looks like this, what you and I are doing. So Adam, our buddy, we were talking, man, when we were all talking with you. And I don't want to call it an online church. I don't want to call it that, because it's not a church. Okay. It's not. And so we both got friends, that are not in church, that share the same feelings we do about some church issues. Some are believers, some aren't believers. Okay. So we're actually looking into starting a online, we were going to do it through Zoom, but I think we've changed it to like the Facebook Messenger thing, and I don't know anything about this technology stuff right now with it, but having a call with probably 6 or 8 of us. We're looking at maybe starting out maybe once every other week, maybe.
Cool.
And it's not going to be, it's not going to be a typical, he's in charge, no, you're in charge, or whatever. We're all going to take a role in it. And maybe Adam and I, since kind of starting it, we'll take on the role, start with a little bit. But, in our minds, what we're going to do is just say, hey, whatever, if you believe in a God, a higher power, because honestly, their God might be different than mine.
Mm.
We believe and we know there's only one capital G God. That's the one that we worship. But theirs might be a little different. They might not have the understanding that we do. So whatever God they pray to or whatever it is, how have you seen that God work in your life?
Mm.
Right? What have you seen? And maybe start off with the Bible story.
Mm.
And just say, hey, you know what? This is what I saw in this. Now you tell me, what did you hear in that? How did God speak to you through that?
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know. I felt this way for a while, that this is where I need to be. Because obviously, I like to talk, and I get excited about sharing the Word of God with people. I get excited about it, but I don't believe that there's only that I believe the Word is the Word, and it is without mistake. But it means something different to me than it might mean to you, or
Mm.
vice versa. It doesn't always have to mean this is exactly what it means, and if you don't do this, you're going to hell, right? And so I like to hear other people's perspective, because God can speak through even the unsaved.
Mm.
And I think we need to be willing to push into that and listen to what their perspective is on that scripture, or scripture, period. And with saying that, we may have a better understanding in the end of the day. Okay, so if we encounter somebody else that has the same mentality as you do, we won't come at it from like, man, I don't understand that. We'll have a
Yeah.
better understanding of why maybe they feel that way. And that just helps me to know how to approach that. What do I need to say or don't say?
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the beautiful things about the discovery process is you're like trusting the power of the word and the power
Mhm.
of the spirit, and like have a discussion, trusting the spirit's going to speak and reveal truth in that, so that they come to know Jesus as their Lord and Savior. But that takes time. That's a process. And I love that your patience in it and your intentionality in that. And it just feels, brother, like you're just continuing to step into the call that God's put in your life. I think you're going to continue to see more freedom and more opportunity to step into that call outside of the institution.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. And just, like I said, I'm just evaluating the whole process, the whole institution, non-institution. But more importantly, though, I'm really just digging into God,
Amen.
and just I want to be in His presence. I want to be next to Him. I want to hear Him clearly, right? It's like at the Last Supper, man, when Jesus leaned over. I think it was to John, and whispered in John's ear. Man, I would love to be so close that I hear that whisper
Mhm.
in my ear, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how we don't end on that, because that's just a great word, brother. I'm really grateful, Brian, that you would agree to be on the podcast today and just share your story and just your really fresh transition
Yeah.
from pastor to pioneer. It just means a lot that you be here. I'm just really grateful for you, your love for the Lord, your love for the lost, and your just courage to try stuff out, man. It's really inspiring, brother.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.